Om Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi Nidijasam Lakshagunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Taking teachings on Brahman, divine reality, is good. Hearing about Brahman is also good. Meditating upon Brahman directly is better still. But best of all is that meditation during which the nature of reality becomes revealed and all doubt dies away forever. Om peace, peace, peace. For there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us, sustain us, and illumine our thinking process. Free us from impediments and obstacles, and reveal to us the essence of the teachings. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. With Shankara's wonderful sloka, starting off this class today. This is a class called The Journey of the Soul Through Deep Sleep, the nightly journey that we make. Every 24 hours we have an inner life going on, and during waking state, which is called jagrat in Sanskrit, we quite often just get absorbed by the waking state so much, and then sleep is just maybe for rest or peace alone. But there's another deep level that goes on in dreaming. Just ask the shamans, just ask the Sufis. Probably don't ask the Vedantas because they're more focused on waking up. My teacher used to chant, "From dreams awake, from bonds be free, know the truth, thou art he, thou art she." So speaking directly to this principle, and might as well say attainment of going beyond the three states of awareness that all human beings are subject to. That means waking, jagrat, as I just said, dreaming, svapna, and sushupti, very beautiful word, deep sleep. You won't find teachings about deep sleep in any religion, very little even in India. It's something that the non-dualists have looked into, the rishis of India, when they wanted to become aware of what happened to them. And it probably came around rather naturally and spontaneously when they started thinking, what happened to me last night when I wasn't streaming, and of course when I wasn't awake, when consciousness, as it were, abandoned the five senses, and unspoken took on five subtle senses in dream, and saw everything that it sees in the waking state, also saw that in the dream, only in a subtle sense. And that's how beings began to describe heaven, as the kingdom of heaven is within you, so it wouldn't be outside. You wouldn't be looking up for it, as I've often said. And inside of you doesn't mean inside the body, because inside the body is not a very nice place, as some of us know. So, especially doctors and so forth. But it would have to be, the inside referred to there by Jesus would have to be the kingdom of heaven, which is basically the mind. And when you talk about celestials or angelic bodies in this country, in Christendom, in Christian speak, then you're speaking about the subtle body in India. That's called sukshma sharira. So you have a jagrat, a stula sharira, which is a gross body that goes with the waking state. Then you have a subtle body, sukshma sharira, that goes with the dreaming state, and then you have the the karana sharira means the cause of everything, which goes with the deep sleep state. So you have three bodies, as we've often taught in Vedanta. They teach that, which is unique to that particular philosophy and darshana. And they all move, as it were, in these three realms. You've often heard Bhurbhuva Swaha, and you've heard of the Burloka and Svarloka and Maharloka and so forth. Different ways of talking about these internal worlds. So everyone's traveling nowadays, and so many jets are taking off to go to so many different locations on the physical earth where they can go on vacation, where they can accomplish their work of money making and purchase places to live around the world if you've got the financial wherewithal to do so, which few people have. And so you have this outward journey going on all the time during your 75 to 100 years of life in the body, which is better than it used to be when people only lived to 30 or 40 years of age in not too distant history. So what's overshadowed or forgotten in that regard is there's an inner life that's going on, and that's what these great beings, these great seers, come to tell you about. And when they tell people about it who are focused on the outer body alone, they just have one body and one state, that is the physical body called stula sharira, and then the waking state called jagrat. If they just have that only, then that becomes reality to them. That's where Maya, that word you hear about, begins to take over the mind, and they begin to forget that they have two other bodies and two other states, at least, of awareness. And that's also where the kingdoms of heaven will be found. And you don't have to wait till after death to find the kingdoms of heaven in that. You go into them every night in svapna, in dream state. It's a sort of like Vivekananda says, kind of a rehearsal. Life is kind of a rehearsal for that. So if you're in life, outer life only, and you don't believe that birds have nests and foxes have holes and the Son of Man has no place to lay his head out here, then you're not thinking about your internal life and where you go at night when you go to sleep. If people develop anything a little bit deeper than the waking state, then you have dream state. So, of course, that's not all good, because when we use the expression, you're a dreamer, it doesn't always have a positive connotation. It means you're kind of, dreamlike, and you're not really focused on your work. And but in spiritual circles, when you use the word dream, then it talks about becoming more aware of the kingdoms of heaven within, or your subtle body, and how you move around. For instance, I woke up at just before 4 a.m. this morning, which is usually what I do. That's a very powerful time between midnight and 4. So I usually just wake up there, and I realized when I woke up just before 4 that I had been floating in ethers. So the word ether again is not very well understood, but it should be understood. We only know of one ether, and that's physical. But in Sanskrit and in Vedanta philosophy and yoga, you have 4 other ethers: an ether of energy, an ether of thought, an ether of small self, and did I say ether of energy? So basically, those are called pranakasha, manakasha, jnanakasha, and chitakasha, and chidakasha. There's also a space which is also called mahakasha, the great space. So every night, and it's my experience this morning, if you wake up and your mind is more focused, and you're not given to drowsiness and sleep and forgetfulness all the time, you've done your spiritual practice and so forth, then you may realize that you're floating. As soon as you go to sleep, you leave the physical body and physical senses and all that. You take on this subtle body with the subtle senses, And you begin to go into deep sleep after that, after you've seen the version of the external world mirrored in the internal world of your mind. There's even a sloka about that in the scriptures that's very beautiful to refer to. Mukha basako darpane drishamano mukhatvam pritak venanai vasti vastu chidabasako desha jivo pitadvat Sanitya palabdis swarupahamatma. Om. One of the verses out of the Hasta Amalaka Stotram, which means the fruit in the palm of your hand, that some souls can see their true self as easily as anyone out here would see the fruit in the palm of their hand. They can see the self within, traversing these various levels of awareness, and they do it consciously. Of course, you're going to have to do your practices consciously out here in order to open up the channel ways, i.e. nadis, they're called in Sanskrit, by which your consciousness can pass from the waking state into dreaming state with awareness intact. So that's what this verse of Hasta Amalaka Stotram says. As a reflection in a mirror is identical with the object reflected in it, so too the universe is identical with the self when it's revealed in the mirror of pure mind. Thus are living beings perfect images of the eternal subject, the undying self. And that limitless self am I, identical with the Supreme Being. This is what's called non-duality, and there are certain scriptures and stotrams like this in India that can be sought after and culled out and memorized and sung even by these great rishis who are in a state of non-duality. Oh, did I forget to mention that it's beyond the three states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So jagrat, waking, svapna, dreaming, sushupti, deep sleep, and Turiya, everyone in the room said. Turiya means the fourth, basically. And so there is a fourth state of awareness, and that's what these great beings, who are very rare on earth, dwell in. But everything out here becomes reflected in it only if they have pure minds. So they will see the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep reflected in their self, in the mind, in the self, when the mind is pure. If the mind's impure, then dreaming, deep sleep, and Turiya, all three, are forgotten and disbelieved. And nobody thinks about them, nobody wants to attain them. When the Buddha sat in the woods for so many 48 days under the bo tree, he was trying to attain, or he actually, achieved going beyond samsara and getting into nirvana. There's another way of putting it in Indian philosophy, Buddhism being originally Indian philosophy. So you have samsara and nirvana is the way it's put. Samsara is this outer life only with the senses focused on the objects for pleasure and pain to gain wealth, and then that leads to dissatisfaction and suffering. We see that going on all the time in the world. Malcontent everywhere in the greater percentage of people, and imbalanced mind. And sometimes from that, then many lifetimes of imbalance even in the body. As opposed to these great seers who are always trying to tell us and show us, if they go out into the wilderness, or they go sit under the bo tree, or they go to the top of the mountain, like Muhammad, then they go out to get this experience of Turiya, basically. And the Advaitas wanted to stay away from terms like nirvana, nirvikalpa, and asambragyata, and satori, and other beautiful words which you can describe this non-dual state, this Advaitic state. So they just said, yan, as it were, that's the fourth state. That's what's going to dawn on you when you are able to realize this transmigration process of going from waking to dreaming to deep sleep. And then at some point, seeing what's in deep sleep and seeing that the whole thing is a reflection in your now purified mind. And it's just like a mirror. This is brought to bear by Gaudapada in his Karaka on the Mandukya Upanishad when he talks about waking and dreaming being identical with one another. The only difference being in the grossness of the objects. In the dream state, you're living in liquefied objects, the realm of liquefied objects. They're thought objects. And then when you come back out into dreaming, into waking, they turn into solid objects. And you're passing back and forth. Billions of souls are passing back and forth between these two states, svapna and sushupti, every 24 hours. And probably most of those too, unless they're not able to get into deep sleep, are also going into deep sleep every 24 hours for a few hours. You might be laying next to your partner, your wife, your husband, and all of a sudden hear them breathing. All of a sudden the breathing goes away, and if you're not sleeping for whatever reason, all of a sudden 45 minutes later hear them start to breathe again. Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, when she was lying next to him when she first came to Dakaneshwar Kali Temple when she was just 18 years old, he gave her her own room, but first, while she was ill, recovering from the journey, he had her stay in the same room with her, and she would hear him go into Samadhi every night, and his breathing would stop for hours at a time. She'd wake up the whole temple grounds thinking that her husband had left her and died in his sleep. And somebody would come back and, like Hriday or one of the attendants, and breathe and say the mantra, the divine formula, into the ear of Sri Ramakrishna for a while until his consciousness would then come back to the body out of these deeper states. So most people are easier to wake up because they're not in samadhi. They're just dreaming. Or they're in deep sleep. You can wake them up quickly out of deep sleep too. But if you go into Turiya from waking, then that points out, indicates a soul who's got all the nadis open, all the chakras open, they call them, all the lotuses blooming. And they can go straight from waking state since they're not interested in reflections in waking and dreaming. They're not interested in dreams. They can go straight into deep sleep and from there move into Turiya. So it's interesting then what's in deep sleep, and that's why we're calling this class the soul's nightly journey through deep sleep. We want to get into that state of conscious deep sleep that is so rare, which happens when you become aware that it's a place that you can go to. Out here, some few hundred miles off the Hawaiian Islands, they're seeing bubbles come up, big, huge boils coming up in the ocean. And they sent a diver down, and there's lava forcing its way up towards the surface, just causing these big boils in the ocean. So another Hawaiian island or another set of islands is in the making for many thousands of years before it hits the surface, probably. So you don't want to call your travel agent just yet, they say. But at the same time, that's kind of what, knowing that an island is forming out there, that there will probably be life on it before too long. In that same way, coming to know that you have a state inside of you called deep sleep, where everything's in formlessness, is knowing that exists. And so that's a psychological advantage you have, and you can then begin meditating on it. Some people who enter into meditation, like I just chanted, right? Hearing about Brahman's good, taking teachings is better, meditating on Brahman is better still. So some people come to meditation early, even before they hear the teachings or contemplate them, and they're right away trying to get a vision of something that is extraordinary. It's not common to most people, so they're looking for a vision or a light or sometimes for people, sound of Om. They'll have these experiences and they'll start meditating with focused concentration on light or sound or a divine image that we call in our tradition Ishtam or Ishvari, God with form, in a most subtle form. Like Divine Mother, like Sri Krishna, whose birthday is in a few days here, this month, middle of this month. So they'll have meditation on God with form, but previous to that, they haven't believed in that. You see, it hasn't dawned on them that that's actually a reality. What to speak of the formless Brahman, which is the light of consciousness, which is Turiya, you see. So in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, the soul moves this way every night for some 12 hours in and out of these states, and it comes back to waking state, and in most cases forgets everything that happened to it in deep sleep. Of course it would, because there's no memory of that in them. But in dreaming, they sometimes remember a few key things. I had a powerful dream last night, or I had a silly dream last night, or I'm subject to the 1,000 imbecilities of the mind, Vedanta calls it, or I just dream silly things every night. What's wrong with me? So people used to ask me that, how do I become a conscious dreamer? Because some decades ago, there are books coming out about that. You see, what did they call that at the time?
Lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming, thank you. And of course, I'm saying Vedanta wants you to wake up from all dreams, but it doesn't mean that you won't have a few lucid dreams along the way towards this state beyond form, because dream is a kind of form. It's always working with forms. But there's a formless reality is where you get that peace that passes all understanding. It's where you have that nirvana, and it's where you have that experience of the light of consciousness, or Brahman. Words like Allah and Almighty Father, the Great Spirit, and Buddha nature, they all refer to this great light of consciousness, which is formless. So we've had a few great souls, like I mentioned, Gaudapada, come along and talk about waking and dreaming, and contrast them, put them off against one another, and show how they're just moving in and out from those two states and back again. And it's kind of always left deep sleep alone. So these two charts I want to show you will first familiarize you with the three states of awareness common to everyone. Remember that when people go into these deeper states, if your mind is pure, it's been made purified by sadhana, spiritual practices, then your dreamscape and your deep sleepscape are much different than most people. The greater amount of people aren't having lucid dreams. Like I say, they're just having dreams that are based pretty much on what they experienced back there in their waking state, right? Or out there in their waking state might be better. But if you're not even just a lucid dreamer, which is kind of some attainment you want to have, so that you can enjoy everything in the dream state that you're not able to enjoy in the waking state, then you slide into this peaceful repose called deep sleep. And you're floating in the ethers. You're floating in the ethers of consciousness. That's called Ekarnava, the ocean of consciousness. All beings float there. There's a beautiful song by Ram Prasad where he says, floating in the cosmic mother's womb, we're all contemplatives. Isn't that beautiful? Floating every night in the cosmic mother's womb, we're all contemplatives. But then we eat poison when we come out here to the realm of the five elements, and eat earth and drink water and so forth. Inside, there's no nourishment needed because you don't have a physical body. You have a subtle body, or let me give you a nice term for the deep sleep state, a causal body. That's the cause, and that's what Karana Sharira means, the sheath of what caused everything in dream and caused everything in waking. If you take the Sanskrit words at their deepest meaning and literally, and you work them into your thinking consciousness and you contemplate them, then it becomes apparent that waking, dreaming have a cause. They're coming from some other place. Just like we say all of this came from God, right? Well, it's not exactly the way we would put it in Vedanta, because God's not a creator, The mind is actually the projector, is what's happening here. But God has a great mind called the Mahat, and everything is reflected in that in a very pure way, and then works its way down in terms of worlds. From Satyaloka to Taparloka to Janarloka to Maharloka to Svarloka, and down all the way to what we call Burloka here, Earth, through 7 levels of worlds. In those 7 levels of worlds, consciousness is then coming out of formlessness into subtle form, into gross form. And then when it passes away from the body, and it doesn't have the body holding it down anymore, it passes back from the growth to the subtle, to the causal. In most cases, when soul comes out into the waking state, it's been brought there by a tether. You see, like Ramakrishna used to say, you tether a goat to a pole, and the goat can only go around so far as the tether, as long as the tether is. That's signified by the spinal column of a physical being. You know, that's like their tether. All the worlds are inside of the subtle version of that, chakras and centers and worlds and all of that. But it's tied to this physical aspect of it that's always drawing it back to the physical body into which it was born and to which it thinks is its only state. So when this, and part of that is the fear of death, you see. Oh, I'm born now, I fear death. But for the realized souls, it's like, it's a good day to die kind of thing. You know, I'm ready to go. I've seen what's here. And I've seen that it's just a reflection of what I dream. And then I saw also that waking and dreaming are both contained back in the causal state. That's called deep sleep. So they've opened their third eye, as what Krishna says, utkramantam stitim utkramantam, and what the pertinent part of the sloka is vimuda jnana chakshushaha. Vimuda means dull. If your consciousness is dull and you're not aware of this moving back and forth consciously between your own 3 states of awareness, then you don't see how the Lord comes and goes from bodies, gross to subtle, to causal, to absolute, and back again. That's you that's doing that. That's why this beautiful verse we just sang said, that limitless self am I, right? I'm identical with the Supreme Being. It's not going to let itself out of the quotient. It's going to realize that all of this is getting reflected in the pure mind and being drawn back into the pure mind. And that's I. That pure mind is my own self, my own Atman we call it, or my own Buddha nature, if you will. So the beings that have this facility to go in and out of deep sleep and come back to the waking state, knowing what they perceived with their third eye, that's called jnana chakshushaha, the third eye. They've brought something back from deep sleep that the main percentage of human beings are not cognitive of. They're not remembering their causal body. In other words, they're not feeling like I was saying last night, you're waking up saying, I was floating on etheric waters, an ocean of consciousness. And that's what we all do when we go into deep sleep. That's why it's so restful and so close to the nature of Brahman. The only thing missing from that is our own awareness of how close it is to Brahman, or our own awareness of our connection of our eternal self with that eternal Brahman. So if you see deep sleep with your third eye open enough, then you're starting to get the idea, I can go beyond it, and that's what we call Turiya. There's a 4th state beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Now this chart here rather, if we look at it, gives us a visual of what I'm trying to explain here at a very subtle matter. And you can see starting at the bottom, or if you want to just look at the whole chart from bottom up, there's this three bubbles, as it were. The first one is a waking state bubble. You can see a city there, and you can see what's the words attached to it. Lands, resources, wealth, power, pleasure are basically the pursuits of people in that city. There are probably very few rishis, yogis, seers, saints, avatars, ishvarakotis, or realized souls in that city. There may be a few here and there who are trying to help people wake up to these very things that we're talking about right now in Advaita Vedanta, is basically what explains these three states of awareness, and four states of awareness if you count Turiya. So you can see that's the waking state. And this arc goes up to dreaming into deep sleep. See, and as it moves up, it shows you the dreaming state that people go into every night. Some of them, it's dull. Some of them may even bypass it and go straight to deep sleep. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people may be just dreamers. They really want to go to sleep and dream to sort of escape the harsh realities of the waking state. So there are many kinds of beings or souls. That's the transmigrating soul we're talking about, not the Atman. That's moving in and out of these three states of awareness along, like cars along, what was I saw, a 15-lane freeway the other day. So, just cars packed along these lanes. That lane is the spine. It's called the sushupna. It's not the physical spine, but that's an outer representation of it. But when you get into the subtle body, then you're moving up this sushupna channel. That's like a 15-lane highway with billions of cars on it. And those cars are transmigrating souls who are every night going in from waking to dreaming to deep sleep and back to waking. But waking is holding the four, right? People think, I am myself when I'm awake. That's half true. But if you're awake only to the body and senses, and you're not awake to your consciousness or to your higher awareness, then that's not true. You're actually sleeping even when you're waking. There are songs written about that. Oh mind, you walk around with eyes wide open, yet you're completely asleep. A song by Ram Prasad, which he tells that to himself. He's tired of, being asleep even when he's awake. So this spiritual awakening we're talking about, that's different. It will make this dream state more lucid, as we were just saying. You can see there that that's moving through another bubble, which is like the subtle body, right? So the gross body, with all its lands and wealth and cities and so forth, consciousness leaves that every night, and it doesn't have to be at night, but conventionally speaking, goes into dreaming and dreams these kingdoms of heaven, which you see there. And then it passes beyond that at some point during its sojourn at night. Remember, I talked about how people are going on vacation on jets. Well, this is an inner vacation people are taking in vahanas. It's a Sanskrit word, means an aerial car. So it's a body that flies, a subtle body that flies through these inner realms, and you get carried. We just had a God blog last week where we read about Mathur Babu when he passed, one of Sri Ramakrishna's devotees. He saw a chariot come for him and pick him up, and the attendants of the Divine Mother put him in the chariot and lofted him inwards to this high realm of the Devi, is what we read. As Sri Ramakrishna was to tell it later, that Mathur left his body. So that's abandoning his physical body for the last time, that particular body, going into a subtle body, seeing these worlds inside, and the attendants are there carrying him to the realm of the Devi, which is then a deeper kingdom of heaven within. So this is how it happens to people all the time, but usually in a more intense moment, like the passing of the body. And if we want to have lucid dreams, or we want to have awareness of what's in deep sleep, then we're going to have to make our waking state lucid. That's how it is. You do your practices, you meditate, you study the scriptures, you listen to the seers, you take consult of the preceptors and the gurus, that is the authentic gurus, And basically, you prepare yourself here in the waking state, and as you do that through your 75 to 100 years of life, your mind becomes more pure. And as your mind becomes more pure, you're actually then realizing that you're floating on cosmic ethers every time you leave the physical body. You go straight to that aerial car, as it were, and you take this subtle body inwards, and you become more and more aware of that. This eye begins to open. This ear begins to hear. This third ear, if you want to call it that. And this is called spiritual awakening and leads to enlightenment. So this can be a matter of just constant bondage, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, when these two aren't counted as a part of the soul's existence. And this is the only thing you have to revert to. Of course, that's not going to conduct much light. The body, the senses, the objects that they attach to, there's not a lot of light of consciousness in any of those things. The light's all in the energy and in the mind, prana and mind connection. And so you're going to have to awaken that prana. Breathing would help, you see, and focusing, concentration, the sixth limb of yoga. Start practicing your yogic exercises, and pretty soon then, you're having expanded breath, vibrant prana, health, good health. That's not where you stop. All you hatis out there, you go on towards pure mind. That's the whole thing, and the real goal is the Atman. You want to awaken to your true nature, like this beautiful stotram. That I am. That's one with the ultimate reality. I am one with the ultimate reality. Or if you prefer, I and my Father are one. So this leads us up to deep sleep, which we want to talk and look about in the next chart. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here in this one class to explain a very abstruse and very subtle subject, unless we decide to take it an extra week next Sunday. But we'll see about that. And then what we want to look at here is, now that we've made the point that waking and dreaming have a source, and that source is not yet Brahman, because Brahman is going to take a very deep level of realization and practice in order to see the light of Brahman, to merge into the light of Brahman. It's like the hailstone falling in the ocean. We quite often use that analogy. But deep sleep then becomes pointed out by these great seers like Gaudapada and Shankara. The Advaita Vedantas are telling us about the presence of deep sleep and how Utkramantam stitim vyapi bhunjanam is what I was trying to remember Krishna saying in the Gita. Basically, this steady state of awareness conducts you, opens the third eye, jnana chakshusha. But vimuda, those people who don't do their practices to open these higher senses, they stay stuck in this round of birth and death. And this birth and death contains a lot of nights of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, back to dreaming, back to waking. So they're running a nadi, or a channel of convention in all things, of ordinariness, which is based on thinking the world to be real, thinking your body to be real, thinking the waking state to be the only reality, and everything else gets pushed behind or discounted or disbelieved in. Spiritual life turns all of this back on its heel and brings everything back about the importance of spiritual life, of spiritual awakening, and how, trading in these two eyes that are seeing external all the time for this one eye, which begins to look inward, can result in awakening to not only seeing the heavens inside of you. Kingdoms of heaven are within you. You can actually visit them, and you don't have to wait for death for that. Your dreams will become lucid, and you'll see your ancestors. You'll see your guru. You'll see your ishtam. You see your chosen ideal in the mirror of the mind, in the subtle body, talking to you, speaking to you. These are very powerful dreams, and they are courting visions too. They're like dream visions that you're having. Then when you're going to deep sleep, then there's a subtle veil there that's causing people to forget a lot. Sometimes we talk about the curtain of nescience, and how the soul going through that formless area strips them of their memory, so that you come back to the waking state and you don't remember what you dreamed, and you don't remember deep sleep. So sometimes that's how the Vedantists will tell you. You can say, well, what's the proof there's deep sleep? Well, there's no actual proof except the man says to himself, I don't know what happened to me, but I felt very peaceful there, and I feel very good after I come out of it. So it's more of a proof of the reflection and healing, if you need that when you go into deep sleep, you come out of that. This is why, like, taking sleeping pills is going to add to that veil, because you really have everything you need inside of you. You've probably heard that many times said by people who teach spirituality and higher religion and philosophy. You have everything you need inside you. There means you have deep sleep to go to every night. So you want to keep that passageway to deep sleep open, and you want to carry your awakened awareness along with you when you go there. Mantra is one of the ways in which they help you do that. It's because you have a guide then. If you're afraid to go formless, then you say your mantra before you fall asleep, and pretty soon you have your deity that you're calling on in the mantra showing up in your dream state and saying, come with me. That's how our founder here in SRV talked about having a dream of Muhammad, who guided him to the heavens and then beyond the heavens. So you can get to heaven, as it were, and through an angelic helper, a celestial being, but your Ishtam, who is your chosen ideal, wants you to go beyond heaven to the feet of the Divine Mother, or to the very heart of the Almighty Father, and realize your oneness there. I and my Father are one, be thee perfect, kind of thing. So religion mentions some of these things, but Indian philosophy teaches them through Advaita Vedanta. Now, to further explain this chart, because there are some little quotes here and there that are very nice about it. You can see the man, image, he's like cloud head, right? He's like formed right out of the clouds of the ether. And he's looking beyond the land's resources, wealth, power, and pleasure that's there in the world. He says, well, I think there's something deeper and better than that, and it's probably also the source of the pleasure I get from all of that. There's a source for that pleasure called bliss, and there's a rest from all of that activity called peace, and there's relief from all that ignorance called wisdom. You see, that's what they're looking for when they begin to look inward towards a more lucid state of consciousness that they're approaching. And so with mantra, with study, with practice, they begin to purify the mind. Consciousness can now pass out of it to the inner states and take up this celestial chariot we're talking about, this subtle body, and move more consciously into all of this. Come back the next day and said, I had this wonderful dream. Come back the next day and said, I saw everything mirrored in deep sleep. And that's really kind of the point we want to make when we move to this next chart, is that there are seeds in deep sleep. You can see these seeds here that are falling into the mind from the deep sleep state. So the mind is dreaming two kinds of dreams here. Ramana Maharshi said there's dream number 1 and dream number 2. If you want to put those in some sort of order, the first dream you're having is dreaming in heaven, dreaming with a subtle body, and the second dream you're having is dreaming in the gross world, dreaming in the gross body, and then the gross body goes away in sleep, your senses shut off in sleep, you take on the subtle body and the subtle senses, and you dream some more. Vivekananda says here beautifully, how could a perfect God have been dreaming? He never dreamed. Truth never dreams. This very idea is absurd. So I like that. When I heard Swami Vivekananda put that in a letter to one of his friends or brothers or students. And so we have to, again, remember that all of this is a transmigration of something that doesn't need to transmigrate to exist. It's a dream. And oftentimes people call life a dream. I mean, it's in your early songs when you're a kid, right? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. That stream is a sushupna. And rowing it gently means you fall into dream, and then you fall into deep sleep, and you come back to the two. Life is but a dream. So pretty soon some souls wake up to that fact, and they want to stop dreaming. They want to see what's beyond the dream, called the dreamer. So a dancer needs a stage. You know, the dancer wants that stage to be well memorized and solid underfoot and supportive. That's what we need to realize about deep sleep and dream. They can't be shifting anymore on us. We can't be relying on the changes that happen in dreams, even though they might look better than the changes that are happening here on earth in the waking state. We want to trace them back to a solid foundation. Then the most solid foundation is Brahman itself. That is divine reality. But there's one little step we're going to have to make there from dreaming to Brahman that's called deep sleep, that we have to become aware of if we're going to consciously pass through those veils that are there and wake up for all time, instead of transmigrating through these three states of consciousness and never knowing that Turiya is beyond them, and never knowing that deep sleep is the source of waking and dreaming. Those are the 2 points to make in this class. There's a state beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and waking and dreaming have a source in deep sleep. So that is just a little sample of this chart, and I think that pretty much, you can see at the very top there the word Om and Turiya, poised beyond. So there again, Sri Ramakrishna said, I had to come down a long way from Turiya to get to Om. That's the word. And when the word vibrates, deep sleep, it waters the seeds in the cosmic mind. And it's the same as the individual getting their seeds for their life and their karma and their samskaras and their destiny and their lives on earth. Get it watered in deep sleep. Then they're going to take on a dream body. Then they're going to take on a gross body. And guess what that's called? The wife getting pregnant, and the fetus, and the baby coming out. It takes a long time to do that, but that's the result of everything that was in the karma of deep sleep, and in the source of dreaming, and in the source of deep sleep and seeds. Everyone's watering seeds constantly. Ask the farmer. Even out here, that's going on everywhere. Everything comes from seeds. So these thought seeds are what we're looking at here that are very important. You can see them filling the mind there, and it's going to be a matter of which seeds get watered that's going to produce your quality of dream, that's going to then manifest itself in the quality of your physical existence. Some beings can come into the physical body, like the avatars and the saints and the seers, fully in remembrance of everything that they did in a previous lifetime. So if you want to talk about rebirth, this is a very important teaching to plug in to understand what's happening in the rebirth of illumined souls. Also, it will help you understand the rebirth of good souls, the rebirth of evil souls, the rebirth of wise souls, the rebirth of conscious and unconscious souls, the rebirth of ignorant souls, and everything that comes about will be clarified when you realize that these seed karmas, if you want to call them that, are all nestled there in the mind of every being. And if the mind is pure, as we just said in this chart and in this stotram, then they're having full consciousness of all three states, and they know about Turiya. If the mind remains impure and is not trained, is not purified, it has lust, greed, anger, envy, pride, shame, and so forth in it all the time, and those are impurities, then it's trapped here. See what it says here. Where was it? I think I saw it. Individual mind and human beings, and then going up to heaven-bound ancestors who are going to be reborn on earth, and the individual mind moving up to the collective mind with the ancestors, and then going beyond that into the cosmic mind near deep sleep. So there's other assignments on this chart that put together these aspects of the, you want to call it the so-called movement of individual souls. Some of them are focused on their ancestors when they're here on earth, like some religions focus on ancestor worship only, without worship of any reality beyond it. So even religion, conventional religion, there can be very limiting. But other beings are looking toward the gods and goddesses and looking beyond the deities, if they meditate on the deities, toward the illumined souls, the rishis and the seers. They know these beings have realized more than the gods and goddesses have, and then they say, "Follow me, and I will take you to your home of refuge in the Lord, in the Mother of the universe." So this is also put in terms of manifested prakriti and unmanifested prakriti in the teachings. Manifested prakriti is down here on earth, where the thought of water, earth, air, fire, and ether becomes solidified. But back in unmanifested prakriti, they're still in seed form. So it's probably very easy to understand that. Seed form, you have seeds like this light and liquid and solidity. Those are seed thoughts in the mind of God, and the Mahat it's called. And when it vibrates and waters those, then they'll turn into the heavens that are made of air, earth, fire, water, and ether, consisting of subtle thought or intelligence, and then that in turn will grossify, will become thicker and solid, and turn into the 5 elements of air, earth, fire, water, and ether here. And when that happens to an illumined soul, they know that all of this came from a dream, and they'll know that dream came from seeds in deep sleep, and they'll know beyond all seeds, if they want to free themselves from worship of ancestors and gods and goddesses alone, and do what the seers did and get fully realized, they'll go beyond deep sleep too, after realizing what's in it. Let's then jump to the chart that explains this. It's actually, the title's a little bit more like the title. It's here on my left, and you can see that it's called The Primordial Seeds of Deep Sleep. We may have just enough time to take you on this journey that the title of this class means. It's a nightly journey we all take. Now we just want to take it with eyes open, or with eye open. Not only E-Y-E, but capital I. Both of those have to be open. You want to dream and go into deep sleep consciously with your subtle senses intact, and your subtle elements in knowledge, and also your identification, your identity with Brahman intact. I and my Father are one, or Tat Twamasi, we say in India. That thou art. You are that illumined being. There's no difference in your consciousness and that consciousness, except that your consciousness has now become associated with body-mind mechanism, whereas Brahman will never do that. The light of Brahman is always free, like those etheric waters you float in. That's the light of consciousness in a liquid form. So we're going to start from the bottom and take a little journey here. See, basically, I may save the quote till the end. See the soul coming out of this pool, and in the pool is reflected the sun or the moon. And you can see that these seeds here that it's been using in its gross body are objects, bodies, desires, and ego self. These are seeds of emptiness, they would call them. They've become unsatisfactory. You haven't gotten contentment from them. In fact, they begin to take away your peace of mind. So you come out of the reflection of waking state, and you begin to enter into your subtle body. And your subtle body now becomes as real, or maybe even more real, than your gross body, because it's lighter, and it's not subject to death and pain and suffering the way your gross body is. So that's why some people take to meditation so well. And of course other people like to dream and escape the harsh realities. It's not an escape we're talking about here, it's an evolution of spirit, if you want to use the term. In fact, Vivekananda says at this juncture, this thirst for life forever quench, it drags from birth to death and death to birth, the soul. So if you're thirsty for this life of emptiness, that the seeds in your mind are objects, pleasures, the ego, a physical body, and desires, then you're still there at the waking state and still unawakened to your true nature and all the potential that's in you. And many subtle dualities are existing here. That's a platform of subtle dualities at that level. I'll name you probably what Father of Yoga calls the most common. That's pleasure and pain. That's the duality that stains everyone the worst here on earth. They want pleasure and they try and shun pain. Yet pain is what wakes you up, pleasure is what puts you to sleep for the impure mind. So the pure mind, or the purifying mind, thinks, I will take on austerity, I'll do something painful, I'll do something uncomfortable, take on austerity. One person just wrote me, I went through all cold, harsh winter in the East. Now I just moved to California and I'm fine. See, basically she went through an austerity on the East Coast, a horrible winter. And then she moved to California in the sun, and now it's all happy, you see. So that's kind of an example of how the soul begins to wake up to higher things than these unsatisfactory things. Other subtle dualities are, besides pleasure and pain, probably the next in line I would say is virtue and vice. That traps people a lot. And then things like life and death. And form and formlessness, bondage and liberation. They get higher and higher and more subtle as the soul wakes up from a waking state alone existence. Now he's got two dimensions. These beings can move from waking to dreaming, and they've opened up a subtle nadi to dream. So now it's a phase of spiritual life that you begin to notice in the practitioner begins to notice in him or herself and begins to strengthen. Now I say, now I'm feeling like my dreams have more meaning. I'm feeling like I can go there more consciously, and I don't have to wait on time and space and karma and pleasure and pain and subtle dualities to dictate the pace. I've opened up a nadi, I've opened up a channel. It's just like cutting a trail through the forest of bamboo in the back of your house. Now you know you can go there any time as long as you keep the trail open and move through that forest to the mountaintop and back home again. So these beings cut through this forest of bamboo of desires and pleasures and subtle dualities, and keep that open with their meditation practice every night. I'm now going to use my mantra and go into dream. I'm going to know who I am in dream. I'm going to come back to waking state and know that I am that. See, they've got two lands open to them now, two different locations. What's yet to know is there's a subtle ether that both of those are floating in, and they're going to have to. And when they get into deep sleep, those two worlds will go away, and now they're floating in this liquid ether, like Vishnu does on the 1,000-headed snake, at the time of Mahapralaya. Listen, Mahapralaya says, Mahapralaya is absolute truth at the non-dual level. For fabrication and dissolution never occur in reality. So you're saying all of this is a dream. It's a nightly sojourn we take on top of a soul that never moves. You see, it's movement on top of non-movement. You're that which doesn't move. You're that which doesn't change. You're that which is divine reality. You're one with that, as the Stotram just told us. Yet you're having this stream of movement all the time. See? So when Mahapralaya takes place, that means the great dissolution. And this is what historians and scientists and physicists and other ists of the Western nation don't understand yet. They think there's a beginning to time and a middle and an end. That's all in Maya. That's all an appearance. There's just a rising off of consciousness and a falling back into it. That's all there is. If you want to put a name to the rising, then that's called a new yuga, or a new series, a new age. And if you want to put an end to that new age, it comes to Mahapralaya, and everything goes back into its seeds, you see. So nothing doesn't exist. Everything is. If you say, Babaji has too many words, okay, can you understand it this way? Nothing doesn't exist. Everything is. Can you accept that? No, probably not. They have to take a lot of thought for those 5 words to dawn on you. So you go to the Jnanam, you go to the philosophy, you go to the darshanas, you go to the seers, and they explain it to you step by step in terms of it being your own consciousness that you're trapped in. And it's your own consciousness that's going to free you. Great souls can only tell you that. They can't actually free you. Moksha is never attained. It's something that is already in you. Moksha means liberation. You're already free. And the pseudo-advices will get a hold of that one and say, oh, I don't have to practice then. But no, we're saying, true advices are saying, get busy and practice what the philosophy is saying and what the seers and the gurus are teaching you, and purify your mind so that it doesn't have any more doubts and fears and confusion as to the nature of reality and relativity both. This is relativity that you're moving through every night. So you just want to bounce back and forth between waking and dreaming? No, I want to know where they came from, where deep sleep came from. They're spending too much time in trying to find out where matter came from and where energy came from, all that. But Atman is not matter, it's not energy, and it's not thought. You're going to have to go beyond all 3 of those to get to your true self and know the truth, so that the truth can set you free. So fabrication and dissolution never really occur. This is a movement in consciousness. Formulation and liquidation of names and forms in time and space must ultimately be attributed to a capricious and falsely imagined creator, who, like a child, inventively fashions paper cutout figurines, then gleefully burns them all into the sun with a magnifying glass. So that's what it's going to take you if you believe in the superstition of a creator God. It's the mind that's doing the projecting. The God is standing back, always free, never bound. The witness of everything that's going on in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Go back to Swamiji then. How could a perfect God have been dreaming? So it's not Brahman that's dreaming, and it's not Brahman's dream. It's yours. So wake up. Wake up from that dream. Wake up from all 3 levels of that dream, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and realize yourself as a permanent resident of the land of Turiya. I am that. That I am. Nothing doesn't exist. Everything is. And I am that. The final words, but again, they need explaining for most people in this day and age. Out of the reflective pool of the ordinary mind, remember we talked about the pure mind? Out of this reflective pool, only a few thousand people out of billions are emerging in any given age, they say. In any given lifetime on earth, there's not very many souls who are getting liberation. Some of them may get salvation, that's more common. But liberation, that's rare. That's mean that you're going to go beyond heavens and dreams of heaven too, right? And dreams of earth. You're going to go beyond those, beyond salvation, and become the perfectly free and pure being that you truly are and always were. So out of that pool comes the soul, and that's called involution. Again, go to the Western knowledge called apara vidya, lower knowledge. They're not talking about involution. You go to conventional religion, the only mention they have of involution, which isn't called that, is going to heaven. Where else would heaven be? It's not up, hell's not down, they're both within you. Kingdoms of heaven are within you. One of the great true statements. So you're going within. That's an involution that's happening. You just want to know how it is that the soul's leaving waking and going into dreaming and coming back to waking and getting caught in that loop, or getting caught in a rebirth in ignorance. Why can't I come back as a perfectly happy soul and a perfectly conscious soul? Why can't I be a Buddha and wake up, you see, so that every lifetime reflects a higher level of my own divinity, till finally I can transcend all three states and go in and merge in the Great Spirit, if you want to call it that. This soul has two basic, the soul that awaken, the way I put it here in the chart, has two options. It can either take the path of shining intelligence, or it can walk over to the platform of divine recognition. If it's a soul that has a lot of spiritual lifetimes already, it can go straight to the platform of spiritual recognition and bypass all this that I'm about to show you. That is, it can get liberated right there as it emerges from the pool of ordinary mind. It sees the light. You know, you might have heard about this in terms of souls who immediately saw the light. And they maybe came back to their bodies and said, I saw a great light. Well, if they didn't come back to the body and they saw that great light, that's probably because they immediately went towards that light and merged in it, like a hailstone in an ocean. That's open to the soul. A soul that has a more of a, you might call it a programming or a karma written onto it, where it still maybe has to return to heaven or has to return to earth. It's not free from the transmigration cycle yet because of desires it still hasn't fulfilled, because of wealth it still hasn't earned, because of objects it still wants to enjoy. Then that's going to pull them back down again. So they wanted the other route here then is to take this path of shining intelligence, you see. So to say the soul turns left, so we can go through this, because this is all about deep sleep. It's waking up from the waking state, it's going to wake up from the dreaming state, and it's moving towards the seeds of deep sleep. And that's one of the things we're going to be looking at when we reach the apex, the top of this chart. That's that third eye, Jnana Chakshu, I mentioned in Sri Krishna's teachings in the Gita, that's shining there, illuminating everything. So if it takes the shining path of intelligence right here, and then moves towards the stairway to the Maharloka, that's he's walking what's called the path of fire. The path of fire is burning away karmas as the soul, could probably be genderless. So that soul is moving then towards, not back to belief in dualities like male and female, but it's moving on towards transcendence of bodies altogether, and races and gender and all of that. Those are all seeds back in deep sleep. They'll come back again if he goes and he or she goes back and waters them. They'll come back again as a male, a female, a Hindu, an American, a Buddhist, or a Christian. Those are all seeds in the mind that are getting watered. But the soul, walking the path of fire, maybe wants to do it for the last time and waking up completely. So up the stairway to the Maharloka will take him to the cave of purificatory sacrifice, or what we call puja. It's going to stop and worship the deities on the way there. In other words, it's passing through the realm of the ancestors and the gods. And when it does so, it stops to bend a knee and to bow a head and to salute with hands. And that's stopping at a level of heaven. Maharloka is the fourth and fifth state of the 7 worlds. Right after Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, then you have Maharloka, Janaloka, Maharloka. So you're talking about the soul that's having darshan, what we call darshan, or communion with the deities. There you see an image of the deity right there. And 2 of them actually, one that's being in the cave to be worshipped, and the other one that's actually appearing in that pillar. So that's the stairway to Maharloka. And many people then are going to that, and that still has seeds. All the forms still have seeds. But other souls are taking the path of non-dual dissolution. And most of these souls are more knowledgeable. They may be past masters already. They may have done this on purpose. See, they know it's a dream, and they know there's 3 phases to it: waking, dreaming, deep sleep. And they know what's beyond it, the light. And they're moving directly to that light in order to be absorbed in it and not have to come back again, like so many other billions of souls who are attached to the dream of waking state. Remember, Ramana Maharshi said there are 2 dreams we're going through, waking and dreaming, he meant. So there's an outer realm and an inner realm. Those are both dream states. Waking and dreaming are both 2 states that are happening psychically to people. So this path of non-dual dissolution, these are all lit by torches and candles, is why I like the image. This path of non-dual dissolution is going through this, going towards this look at deep sleep. Here's where this soul who came out of the world body into the dreaming body is beginning to take on knowledge of how the bodies are all formed and how these worlds below it are all formed. There you see them in the oval there. These are fortuitous seeds to nurture. And they have to do with these 6 great spiritual ideals. Brahman itself, the Almighty Father, or the Great Spirit, or Allah, or Buddha nature, you can call it various things. The Atman, which is the indivisible self in all of us. The Spirit. Shakti, which is the Divine Mother. She's appearing off there to the right. So she holds a place very precious there at that level of deep sleep with seeds. She's nurturing everyone who is going to take on seeds and take on bodies, like dream bodies and waking bodies. She's there to help them fulfill their desires to do that. And so there's that. And then there's Ishvara. That's the chosen ideal, standing there beside its own name. And then Atmagyan, that's wisdom of how all of this gets dissolved. And then the Guru, Dharma, Sangha, the triple gem. All of these are fortuitous seeds to water. When souls came out of heaven, a lot of them didn't know all of these. When souls came out of non-duality, they knew all of these. They brought these to earth with them. And so that's why they immediately take to true religion, they immediately take to higher philosophy, they immediately take to helping others to wake up and be spiritually awakened. And they have all 6 of these with them. These are great seeds, fortuitous seeds to water back in the great mind. So this soul is walking the path of non-dual dissolution and sees these seeds and becomes then availed of them. See, now I can dissolve my waking and dream bodies for good, and I can even give up my causal body, the karana shahura, when I move in like this. Other things of interest stand around that. These 5 pillars behind these seeds are the Pancha Maha Bhutas. And that's where we're talking about seed forms for the 5 elements. The soul who's walking this path towards non-dual dissolution with the third eye opening or opened sees all of the benefits of spiritual life, but also sees how the great Mahat works and how Shiva stands ready to dissolve it all. Shiva sits above there, Sadashiva. So the import of the Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 great elements, are that at that place he sees them as seed forms. So in the mind then, we can think right now about air, earth, fire, water, and ether, and we can talk about them being fused and producing objects like oceans or forests or stone mountains, all consisting of different combinations of the 5 elements. Read your Panchadasi to find out how that happens. But the Pancha, the 5, Pancha means 5, these 5 seed forms or elements are back in the mind of God as great seeds. That is, they can't be discounted and you shouldn't lose awareness of them. This is how everything gets formulated out of deep sleep into dreaming, into waking, by the power of these 5 thoughts. At this level, you could call them earth solidity. You could call water liquidity. You could call fire light, the light of intelligence we just looked at here, and you can call air homogeneity and ether all pervasiveness. These are like causal when they're at that level, and all that needs to be done to them is to put concentration on them, like the Trinity will, and all of this will come into being. Worlds will come into being. People will go to those worlds. Souls will go to those worlds. They'll get themselves caught there. They'll get themselves freed from there. They'll accomplish works there, selfish and unselfish and mixed. They'll accrue different kinds of karma there, good, bad, and mixed. And all of this is going on inside of these worlds of name and form with these billion souls attending upon it up this freeway of the Sushumna due to seeds back in the mind of the Mahat, and coming through into our own mind. You see, what's in God's mind also comes into the collective mind and into the individual mind in this chart. So that's what's happening here as the soul moves inward towards the seeds of deep sleep that we saw in this other chart. And off to, in referring back to the high heavens where the soul is worshiping the deities and the ancestors and so forth, look at these seeds for incarnation. So basically karma, samskaras, religion, genealogy, heritage, aptitude, and character covers a lot of what's there for a soul who wants to try and incarnate consciously and have great intelligence, have great effectivity, can have even great realization on earth, like say a Swami Vivekananda. They'll have all these qualities in them. They'll bring them with them. So that's why you have fortuitous seeds to take with you, seeds of the 5 elements which you know are the foundation of everything. And you have these seeds that help you incarnate into the dreaming and the waking bodies. And they stay with you. So once people are here, they say it's very hard to change. Some people come here, they're shining with the light. Other people come here, very dull. Some people are an admixture. Some people go back and forth between shining and dull. So all of this has to do with their aptitude and their character. And they're born into certain races, and that's called genealogy, and they inherit certain things or not. That's called your heritage or inheritance. And it's all based on other seeds, karmas and samskaras, mental impressions that you have. So these karmas are watched very closely by the Hindus, Hindu religion, the Buddhist religion, particularly, because they'll know that mental impressions will be formed by these karmas, and they will show up down here in your children, in the waking state, in the babies that are being born. And so these karmas are already there. It's not a clean slate. We would disagree with that completely when a soul, so-called soul, is born into the world of parents, that there's a clean slate. No, these impressions that it has, either good, bad, or mixed, or quite often a combination of all of them, will come forward in that mind. And if you're a teacher, as you know, then you'll see this. If you're teaching kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and so forth, and you're working with these young kids, and you see these tendencies start coming out of those children for unknown reasons that they're there, and other children do not have those same tendencies. That can be both positive and negative. The tendency to do evil, the tendency to be selfish, and so forth, the tendency to be good, the tendency to be selfless, has all come. It's because of the samskaric makeup based in the karmas of this that have been formed as seeds and stored back, always stored back in the third state of consciousness called sushupti. And people are going in and out of that, not just in lifetimes, every 24 hours. Don't forget that. You're watering these seeds as you live, or you're taking water away from these seeds as you live. That's a great art, to not water those seeds in you that are causing you trouble in life and causing others to suffer. Come to a New Year's resolution about it, a new life resolution about it. I'm not going to cause suffering to anyone or anything anymore. I'm going to be nonviolent, ahimsa. I'm going to only tell the truth, satyam. I'm going to be moderate in all my appetites, brahmacharya. I'm going to engender pure mind, santosha. I'm going to take up a regimen of spiritual study, swadhyaya. I'm going to worship the Lord and Mother of the Universe, Ishvara Pranidhana. What am I talking about? The early limbs of yoga, of Raja Yoga, of Ashtanga Yoga. There are 8 of them. Of Patanjali, the father of yoga. So these things then will come forward, and you can see how these then all influence the seeds. They've all come from this oval of seeds, as it were, here on this chart. And so that's why I gave it some thought, and I tried to come up with 4 or 5 different kinds of seeds. Here's the 4th kind of seeds up there in the sky as these other moons, you might say. Seed forms for the 5 atmospheres are very good to look at. I already mentioned them, right, early in class. There's the Bhutakasha, which is here. Akasha means space, right? And I said that when you go into more conscious deep sleep tonight, when dreaming stops, see yourself floating in the etheric waters. You see, that's the kind of space you're in. Jnanakasha, you know, the wisdom that you have gleaned while you're living and studying spiritual life in the waking state is your flotation device in that etheric waters. That's why you'll not drown there and come back with no memory. You'll come back. I now am beginning to know that I have a channel that I opened up to formlessness, and that's going to help me in my meditations, and my meditation is going to help that too. I'm going to now meditate with my mantra on God with form, and then I'm going to put my mantra aside and my beads down, and I'm going to meditate on the formless reality and open that channel wider so that I can see what's in deep sleep, what's causing me to live the way I do, what's causing the world to be the way it is. And then I can accept the way it is, and I can transcend it. Remember, I said everything is, and nothing doesn't exist. So this is the way of the Vedanta, especially now that Vivekananda has reintroduced it to us. So the 5 forms of space, 5 different kinds of atmospheres, exist within you. Right? And you can become aware of them and then float in them, as it were. There are people who can float out here in the physical pretty well. You see, they're very graceful. They go from act to act, thought to thought, deed to deed, and so forth, very smoothly. They like that idea of flow. They like the idea of non-resistance, non-violence, and all of those things. So you can even float in the Buddhakasha, practically walk on water, like as they say. So basically, that has to do with these 5 seeds that in the mind of God. Start the whole shooting match again. You know, let's go for another whole Mahayuga of hundreds and thousands of years long before it comes back to Mahapralaya and everything gets dissolved back into its source, Brahman. Let's start it all again. So what am I going to start it with? Well, I'm going to have to start thinking about the 5 atmospheres and the 5 Pancha Mahabuddhas. The 5 elements and the 5 atmospheres would be the first thing in Lord Brahma's mind when he's been instructed by the Divine Mother of the Universe to start the next age. See? Oh, I know how to do that. Just like you know how to do things. That's from seeds in your mind that you know how to do that. Now just water them with your own awareness. Concentrate a little bit and they happen. Oh, the beauty of those days. Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi used to say, I would think a thing and it would come to me right away. Sometimes it took a day or two, or sometimes it happened right away, but I would think it with my own concentration, my own pure mind, and there it would be at my door. See? So that's how these awakened, aware souls live all the time. Almost free of transmigration, whether it be over 5 atmospheres, 7 worlds, or 3 levels of consciousness. They're free of that. They're living in Turiya. They're realized as they walk, as they sleep, as they speak, as they eat. That question's been asked of Sri Krishna in the Gita, for instance. One other set of seeds is histrigunyam here. That's the other thing that you can put in a chart like this when you're speaking about the unspeakable, when you're trying to formulate the formless, and when you're trying to describe the indescribable, which is deep sleep, that you have to infer from so much that has come forth from that state and then take it all back. Evolution, then involution. So we have to become dynamic sojourners of the path of involution, like the soul. He's headed back towards, along the fire of yoga, to the path of non-dual dissolution. He sees the seeds on the way. You do that, you should be able to do that every night. I see the seeds, oh, they're back again. I see the seeds, they're back again, but I didn't water that one, it's gone. You see. I see the seeds, I'm back again, oh, lust and anger is gone. See. And I'm back again, oh, the seed of dissension is gone. I'm back again, the seed of selfishness is gone. And so along the fire of yoga, you burn them with your own conscious awareness, and you free yourself in this very life. So the 3 modes of nature, is a whole nother study. I grabbed a chart for it before I left, and then I dropped it because I knew this was going to be just a short class, and this was going to be a lot to get through. Probably good to end then in this last minute or two with this little quote up here on top. What happens to awareness in deep sleep? If asked, most beings would answer, quote, I do not know, unquote, or, quote, I do not remember, unquote, or, quote, nothing happened, unquote. These 3 responses are subtle barriers to the realization of the Atman, the eternal self of all beings. So all 3 of these are going to have to be rethought, and going to have to be, your thoughts are going to have to be deepened about this. As long as you keep saying, I do not know, then you will never know. But the minute you say, I know, then this knowledge begins to come Look how much of it there is. Just the knowledge that everything came from a seed alone is helpful for the farmer. So for the spiritual farmer, isn't it going to be that much more helpful for him to know that everything came from spiritual seeds, and that those all have, that's the source of everything, and they can be watered or not. They can be burned over the fire of knowledge so that they won't germinate again, as Sri Ramakrishna said. So here's an effort in a time and a world, and even in a religion and philosophy of the world, to make some sort of statement about this very subtle and unseen level called deep sleep, or sushupti. They have a word for it in Sanskrit, and the non-dualists have been very much focused on it. And in fact, they like to think that if people become aware of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, that that will open up the way towards non-dual realization and moksha, mukti, freedom. Words that you don't usually hear in religion, words that you don't hear all that much even in Hinduism and Buddhism, until you get to this higher understanding of the existence of them and how they exist all within you. And therefore come down to that recognition of the perfect identification of the apparently individualized soul with the Supreme Soul, the Jivatman with Paramatman, and the Jiva with Shiva, and Paramatman with Parabrahma, as they say in our tradition. So here we will end this one-off class about the 3 states of awareness plus Turiya, with the accent on deep sleep, and move on to next Sunday's class on another subject of the Vedanta. Om Devim Prasanam Pranatarti Hantrim Yogrindram Yugdharma Patrim Tam Sharadam Ganam. Yogendra Pujam Jumadharma Patrim Tam Sharadam Bhakti Vigana Datrim Daya Swarupam Pradamami Nityam. Om. O Sharda, propitious goddess, killer of misery in souls resigned, savior of religion in every age, by sages and saints worshipped, O Mother kind. Give us love and wisdom, O grace incarnate. To thee we bow. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.